Good morning, parties. Please take your seats. Parties, as you take your seats, just a reminder that I said that we would take the two summary records, Record 2 and Record 3 this morning, so if you can be ready to take those in just a few minutes when we get quorum, that would be great. Good morning, everyone. We're ready to start. Please take your seats. I'm going to start with CoP19 COM2 Rec 2 summary record from our second session. Parties, any comments on the summary record? I don't see any comments from parties. Do I have anyone else in the room? Centre for Biodiversity, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Summary Record 2 page 3, line 7 says the ASEAN Center for Biodiversity, but I believe that isn't an error. My organization pushed their button to join the working group on document 23, zoonotic disease. We had participated in the Standing Committee Intersessional Working Group as well. I think we were referred to as the Center for Biodiversity instead of the Center for Biological Diversity, and that perhaps led to a reporting error. We'd like to have this corrected in the summary record so we can continue to participate in the in-session working group. Thank you.
Thank you, we've captured that. Okay, not seeing any more comments on Rec 2. We will move to Record 3. CoP19, COM2, Record 3. Canada, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. I don't have the document in front of me, but I believe on agenda item 17.1 on cooperation with other biodiversity-related conventions, it states Canada introduced the document when in fact it was the chair of the Standing Committee, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair of the Standing Committee. Okay, not seeing any more comments on that record. Secretariat has reminded me to say that we adopt the record. So we'll start our morning where we left off yesterday evening. We have document 66.4.1 and 66.4.2, both on trade in live African elephants in front of us. So I indicated yesterday that I would come back to parties briefly to see if there had been any creative solutions or novel ways forward overnight. I also want to take some observers and hear their voices before we decide where we're going to go on this. So we had a long discussion parties yesterday afternoon. We've heard lots of perspectives on this matter. I did want to offer any new strategies sometime. So if any party would like to introduce anything in addition to what we discussed yesterday. China, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to draw your attention to document 66.4.2. It's somewhat overlapped with the drafting working group on document 88. And so I just suggest that we need to take a holistic way to deal with this complex issue. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, China, and I think the European Union in the introduction also acknowledged that. So I am intending to consider those recommendations in the context of the discussions that are being had on document 88. Okay, I don't see any other parties asking for the floor, so I will open the floor for observers. I will take some observers for their comments. Actually, Burkina Faso, you've asked for the floor. I've just opened to observers, but I will take Burkina Faso. Burkina Faso, you have the floor.
Exactement.
Indeed. Thank you, Madam Chair. Burkina Faso and the coalition remain very much attached to document 66.4.1. We also looked at the amendments proposed in 66.4.2. That is to say, establishing a dialogue process. This does not seem transparent to us. Therefore, we would suggest creating an intersessional working group, which we believe would be more transparent. It would enable more stakeholders to be involved in discussions on this issue. And if this issue is accepted, then we have another proposal we would like to make. Thank you.
Thank you, Burkina Faso. I think with that, unfortunately, I will have to clear my observers list. I will come back to you. Technicians, can we clear the list, please? And we'll start again with parties. So parties who'd like to reflect on Burkina Faso's proposal to establish an intersessional working group. Senegal, you have the floor.
Merci, Madame.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning to everyone. Senegal supports the proposal made by Burkina Faso because this issue has been the subject of discussion since CoP18, and we need to have a broad group working in a transparent manner to reach effective conclusions. Thank you.
Thank you, Senegal. I will take a few more parties just to see if there's interest in an intersessional working group. Togo, you have the floor.
Oui, merci.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and good morning to all. Togo supports the proposal made by Burkina Faso and Senegal. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm going to close my party list now because I've got quite a number of parties. I'm just taking comments on whether or not there is interest in establishing a intersessional working group, so we can come back to Burkina Faso for their complete proposal. Mali, you have the floor.
Merci bien.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As previous speakers have stated, and in line with the Coalition for African Elephants, we all wish to ensure the protection of elephants, and therefore my country supports the proposal made by Burkina Faso, Senegal and Togo. Thank you.
Thank you, Mali. Guinea-Bissau, you have the floor.
Okay.
Good morning, and thank you very much, Madam Chair. I just wanted to say that Guinea-Bissau agrees with the proposal made by Burkina Faso. Thank you.
Thank you, Guinea-Bissau. Benin, you have the floor.
Merci, Madame.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Benin also supports the creation of a working group. This would allow us to take into account all of the comments which have been made, and the proposal made by the European Union could be considered, and we could come up with a consensual proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Uganda, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We would like to support the suggestion and the proposal made by Burkina Faso. That this issue has been pending for a while and we needed to generate some consensus. We therefore support the idea of constituting an intersessional working group to explore different ways and mechanisms of resolving the issue. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Uganda. Niger, you have the floor.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Niger is a member of the Coalition for African Elephants, and we support Burkina Faso's proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Niger. Côte d'Ivoire, you have the floor.
Merci, Madame.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Côte d'Ivoire supports the proposal made by Burkina Faso. Thank you.
Thank you, Côte d'Ivoire, and thank you, parties, for being so brief. All the parties that I've just heard from have expressed support for an intersessional working group on this matter. I am going to reopen my list because everyone was so swift in their responses. So I will take the European Union, followed by Ethiopia, followed by Guinea. European Union.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The EU and its member states appreciate the suggested way forward from Burkina Faso in name of the coalition, and we would welcome an opportunity to discuss this matter further. Although we think it's first and foremost up to all African elephant range states to discuss this matter, which is why we suggested this dialogue meeting. And we would respectfully ask, before making any decision, what the other proposal is that Burkina Faso referenced to, so that we have all information for everyone on the table before taking a final position on the way forward. Thank you.
Thank you, European Union. And yes, I do anticipate coming back to Burkina Faso, who has offered to give us their more comprehensive proposal. I did say I would take Ethiopia and then Guinea, so I will do that. And then Burkina Faso, I hope you're ready for me to come back to you. Ethiopia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning to everyone. Ethiopia would like to support the proposal made by Burkina Faso. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ethiopia and Guinea.
Merci, Madame.
Thank you, Madam. Guinea aligns itself fully with the proposal made by Burkina Faso. Any activity will hopefully yield a positive outcome, and therefore we support Burkina Faso's proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Guinea. Burkina Faso, I'm hearing some interest in the idea that you've proposed. So I think it would be helpful to hear some more detail about what you are proposing the intersessional working group would do.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. And we thank the parties who have supported Burkina Faso's proposal in the name of the African Elephant Coalition. Our objective is to reach a consensus with the objective of protecting elephants. As this has been stated, this discussion has been underway for several years, and we haven't yet reached an agreement among the range states of elephants in Africa. We believed that a dialogue session just among ourselves would perhaps not be sufficient, and therefore we need to broaden the participation of an intersessional working group in order to ensure that we have a more objective discussion. Therefore, I'd like to provide some more details on this idea. If this working group would be established, then we would propose a moratorium so that we can find a consensus, so that the issue of live export in African elephants be suspended until we find a solution. So the aim for now is to have a broad-reaching intersessional working group with a wide range of stakeholders to ensure enriched discussions. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Burkina Faso. I think what the parties will need in order to reflect is some language, perhaps a amendment to decisions or a new decision in order to reflect upon. Do you have a decision, an amended decision to offer?
Oui, effectivement, nous...
Yes, indeed. We have some amendments to put forward. And I'm not sure whether these have already been sent. Perhaps I could read out our proposal. Would you like me to read it out? few moments, please. This is our proposal, particularly when it comes to the moratorium. It agrees that while this intersessional process is underway, any export of live, wild-caught African elephant will be limited to in situ conservation programs or secure areas in the wild within the species' natural and historical range in Africa, except in exceptional circumstances where, in consultation with the Animals Committee, through its chair, with the support of the Secretariat, and in consultation with the IUCN African Elephant Specialist Group, it is considered that a transfer to ex situ locations will provide demonstrable in situ conservation benefits for African elephants, or in the case of temporary transfers in emergency situations. This is our proposal, and we believe it is aligned with the European Union's proposal. I don't think it goes against it, and perhaps this is something that could be acceptable. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Burkina Faso. So we've heard from Burkina Faso a new decision. I think I heard directed to the parties. For everyone's comprehension, I might just read what I captured there. I'll read in English. So Burkina Faso is proposing a new decision directed to the parties. The parties agree that while this intersessional process is underway, any export of live wild-caught African elephant will be limited to in situ conservation programs or secure areas in the wilds within the species' natural and historical range in Africa, except in exceptional circumstances where, in consultation with the Animals Committee, through its chair, with the support of the Secretariat, and in consultation with the IUCN African Elephant Specialist Group, it is considered that a transfer to ex situ locations will provide demonstrable in situ conservation benefits for African elephants, or in the case of temporary transfers in emergency situations. So we have a new decision which refers to an intersessional process that we have discussed but do not have a decision around at this point in time. Okay, I'm going to take a couple of party interventions on this. I have Botswana, followed by Zimbabwe.
Thank you, Chair. We have listened with interest to the proposed decision as put forward by Burkina Faso, but Chair, we are unable to accept the decision as is proposed. We would prefer a situation where we are allowed to engage with the EU decision on the way forward, or rather the EU proposed way forward. Chair, I believe that our major concern is around the issues of moratoria. We have seen this time and time again being brought in to address issues around the African elephant. We believe that it is quite clear what our annotation for those elephants whose elephants are on Appendix 2 stays, and we believe that we should be allowed to implement those annotations as is. At the last COP, we already had quite a debate on the issues around amendments, unprocedural amendments of annotations, particularly with regard to annotation 2. Reservations were subsequently tabled on this matter. Unfortunately, the matter was not dealt with satisfactorily, and we would still wish to understand what would transpire regarding the reservations that were made as we address this issue intersessionally. We believe that a moratoria would not address our concerns. We would rather wish that the reservations are addressed at this conference of parties so that we have guidance in terms of what is going to happen over the next 3 years. We also have reservations about establishing a working group with broader membership. We believe that this issue is an African matter. We would wish it to be discussed within the context of the process that is set out for dialogue meetings, and we would also wish it to be attended by the relevant experts, including the specialist group on this particular issue, so that the meetings are kept to range states and they are streamlined accordingly, so that we can move forward in terms of finding a way forward on this issue that will be satisfactory to all range states concerned. Thank you.
Thank you, Botswana. I will take 2 more parties, and then I will open to observers, because I have promised them. So Zimbabwe, followed by Mali.
Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity. Chair, our annotation as is allows us to trade in live elephants. And we also share the same sentiments as Botswana. We are not comfortable in discussing the proposal by Burkina Faso. We will be comfortable in having the discussion on the EU proposals. And you look at the proposals by Burkina Faso, they are limiting our incentives and rights under the Appendix 2 listing to benefit from our wildlife. And as such, Chair, we submit that we would not be comfortable in agreeing to the proposals by Burkina Faso. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Zimbabwe. Mali, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam. Once more, I find myself thanking you for giving me the floor, and thank you for the able way in which you are guiding this debate. We have just heard a statement by my colleague from Burkina Faso, and we support that statement. We feel that an extended group that would work in transparent fashion seems to us to be a good solution. And this is related to the suspension of trade in live elephants. As we heard yesterday, an elephant is like a man, a fish, or a bird. Elephants like to be in their natural environment. It is not fair to transfer them for reasons that are not clear and with which we would not agree. We therefore strongly support the amendment proposed by Burkina Faso. And I would urge other countries that are members of the coalition to support Burkina as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Marley. I still have some parties asking for the floor, but I have promised observers that they can speak, so I will, with your indulgence, let them speak. I will take 4 observers, so I'm already not going to be able to take all of you. Because what I would like to do is come back and work through the pieces that are in front of us now. I think we need to be taking some decisions and finding a way forward here. So I will take Amboseli, followed by the Global March for Elephants and Rhinos. Oh, sorry, now I have IGOs on the floor, so I'll have to revise my list. I will take IUCN, followed by Amboseli, followed by Global March for Elephants and Rhinos. IUCN, you have the floor.
Yeah. Thank you, Madam Chair. On behalf of the IUCN, we acknowledge the clarifying language that was put out initially in document 66.4.1 on the proposed to be included in resolution 1010. IUCN already put out its comments in relation to this issue in the live trade, and we did submit this to Animals Committee 31, document 18.2. We encourage parties and stakeholders in the intersessional group to consider the proposed languages in 66.4.1 in their deliberations, taking into account future live trade conditions that support or enhance African elephants' resilience at species level to climate change, anthropogenic pressures, and other changes in their natural range. Madam Chair, if parties go ahead with intersessional working group, or even if it's dialogue, we've heard from different parties all calling upon the African Elephant Specialist Group of the IUCN to be part of either dialogue or to be part of intersessional working group, then we want to confirm that, yes, indeed, IUCN would be very keen to participate. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, IUCN. So I'm going to ask observers now, please keep your intervention short. I think 1 or 2 minutes. Thank you very much. Amboseli, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I speak to support the proposal made by Burkina Faso for establishing the intersessional working group to allow for consideration of all the suggestions. Indeed, we empathize with the European Union and others who seem to be very diplomatic in this aspect. Considering that elephants have been recognized to have various characteristics like human beings with the empathy and family bonds and all social aspects, for sure captivity cannot be a way out. And the moderation that is coming with the suggestion by Burkina Faso ought to be supported indeed. And if such an intersessional working group can be, as an IPLC, we would like to be part of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Amboseli. Global March for Elephants and Rhinos, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Nkateko Mzimba. I came from South Africa, and I am a member of Black Mambas Anti-Poaching Unit, an all-female anti-poaching unit with Transfrontier Africa. I am also part of a global movement called Global March for Elephant and Rhinos with citizens from around the world, including many across Africa who want to see elephants live in the wild in their natural habitat. This is my first time attending this CITES CoP, and I'm seeing firsthand how debate in a big conference hall like this translate into impact on animals far away. We had yesterday very passionate intervention on their lives of elephants who are captured in the wild and sent to zoos in other continents. Global March for Elephants supports the solution proposed in Doc 66.4.1. It is simple and straightforward and allows for a fair legal framework that will apply to all live elephant of African elephant. We are concerned that parties, following the European Union proposal, have decided to postpone a decision on the highly impact issue until CoP20 at the least. We are also concerned about the repeated request from Western countries that African find a common position on trade in live wild-caught African elephant. Madam Chair, Africa is not a single country, or even an economic and political union. It is a continent of 54 several nations, of which 37 elephant range states. There is a healthy diversity of opinion and approaches to many issues, including on conservation of elephant and on export of live elephant from Africa. Even within the same country, my view does not necessarily align with that of my own government. Transfrontier Africa and Global March for Elephant will follow the process with great interest. There is only one home for a wild elephant. They belong in Africa in their wild habitat. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Global March. I will take two more observers. I will take Suko SA, followed by WWF. Suko SA, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to make this intervention on behalf of Suko SA and several other observers, a list which can be provided in written form. A fellow observer from the Community Leaders Network highlighted it perfectly in an earlier session. Take away the incentives and the benefits of the sustainable use of natural resources from the communities, and they'll most likely be to convert wild habitat to other land use options to ensure that they can provide for their families. Echoing the comments made by numerous parties, CITES' main objective is to ensure that trade does not jeopardize species survival. With specific reference to in situ conservation in South Africa, we have an abundance of elephants, with an excess of over 1,000 adult breeding females now under some form of contraceptive to prevent them from breeding. As this project is predominantly funded by HSI Africa, something which baffles many is either a species is endangered and it requires protection under CITES to ensure its growth and protection, or it is overpopulated and requires population control. It cannot be both. Clearly, it is not trade in live exports, legally hunted trophies, or even poaching that is a threat, but rather the lack of habitat. Hence the relevance of a split listing between CITES Appendix 1 and Appendix 2, with populations of South Africa, Zimbabwe, Botswana, and Namibia listed in Appendix 2. Madam Chair, I'd like to remind the parties that you all might be free to choose, but you are not free from the consequences of your choice. As the overpopulation of elephants in many areas of southern African countries are having devastating impacts on fauna and flora, with the vanishing top canopy trees and subsequent destruction of key vulture nesting sites, as well as many other threatened bird species, to demonstrate a brief example. Any form of further trade restrictions of any kind on domestic trade and export will merely further disincentivize local communities that in most instances carry the burden of tolerating an already overpopulated elephant population. Communities hold the key as the custodians of the most essential component ensuring elephant survival, which is the habitat in which they live. Furthermore, the limitations proposed on in situ conservation within historic or natural distribution ranges in Africa will have conservation impacts on the movement of southern white rhino within Africa through unintended consequences. Undoing many rewilding conservation initiatives, considering Doc 66.41 and 2 are about elephant, we suggest all reference to southern white rhino be removed. In conclusion, Suko SA reminds the parties that this prestigious convention is not a welfare forum, and these discussions are outside of its mandate as it infringes on sovereign rights. It is the view of Suko SA that the proposal of 66.41 is an overreach by the proponents' parties.
Suko SA, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you're at 3 minutes.
Thank you, ma'am. I'm finished. Thank you.
Thank you. WWF, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. WWF would like to raise an important point of clarification, not related to the substantive issues immediately at stake in this document. We note that in paragraph 18 in Doc 66.4.2, it states that a similar decision proposed here for elephants would need to be taken for rhinoceros. We further note that the introduction of the southern species of white rhinoceros, Ceratotherium simum, in free-ranging conditions outside their natural range into areas that were formerly occupied by the northern subspecies of white rhinoceros, Ceratotherium simum cottoni, has played an important contribution to their conservation and role as ecological equivalents. In addition, a number of future restorative initiatives for both white and black rhino are planned. We request the parties to bear this in mind in drafting of future decisions related to rhinos to ensure that unintended consequences do not constitute obstacles to these conservation efforts. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, WWF. So with that, I'm closing my list and I am closing discussion on this. I will come back to you in just a minute. We're going to need to take some decisions on the elements in front of us this morning. Okay, thank you everyone. The way I see it, we have 5 decisions in front of us across these 2 documents, so I will step through them and then we will walk through them together. We have the recommendation of CoP19 document 66.4.1, which are the amendments to resolution Conf 10.10 Rev CoP 18 proposed by Burkina Faso and their co-proponents. That is the first decision that we have to make. Then we have recommendations in CoP19 document 66.4.2. We are asked to note the issues. So that is my second decision that we have to take. We are then presented with a draft decision. I see that draft decision having 2 parts, even though it has 3 parts. We have parts A and B of draft decision 19AA, which go to how to deal with reservations and the references to resolutions in annotations. I see that as a piece because of the relevance to document 88 that we can take together. Then we have the proposal from the European Union for a dialogue meeting, and we have the alternative proposed this morning by Burkina Faso for an intersessional process. I understand that Burkina Faso is proposing that as an alternative to the dialogue meeting. And then the 5th piece that we have to decide on is the new proposal from Burkina Faso on the decision that they read out and I repeated this morning on the arrangements for the trade in live elephants. So I see people asking for the floor. I think we understand everyone's perspectives. So unless anyone disagrees with my process, I would like to go to the decision on the first matter that I outlined. I don't see anyone making a point of order challenging my process. So on the amendments to Resolution Conf 10.10, Rev CoP 18, outlined in CoP19 document 66.4.1. We had quite a lengthy discussion on this yesterday. I heard some support for those resolution amendments. It's my view that there was not enough support in the room to adopt those amendments. European Union, do you have a point to make on that? Thank you, European Union. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We would have a suggestion to cover a bit all the different decisions that are ahead of us. And apologies for not being quick enough to mention this. We have listened with attention to the different views expressed by the Wayne states after the proposal from Burkina Faso. And perhaps as a compromise way forward, we can take into account some of the concerns from both sides. So we would suggest to adopt the decision proposed by Burkina Faso, but add language at the end of that decision to make it clear that this is to be revisited and reconsidered at COP20. And with regards to the intercessional process, we still prefer to have a dialogue meeting because we think it would be more effective to have the range states and the relevant experts like the IUCN specialist group in a room together to discuss this matter. And we note that a dialogue meeting, as mentioned in the relevant resolution on this type of meeting, it provides the opportunity for the representatives of states to express their concerns, share information, exchange views in a frank and free manner without pressures that exist on meetings like this meeting to seek a way forward. And we think this is exactly what is needed in this discussion. So we would respectfully ask for this to be considered as an alternative way forward. Thank you.
Thank you, European Union. And with your indulgence, I will take that when I get to it. I've outlined that I would like to do this in a stepwise manner. So I would like to deal with the recommendation that we have in front of us on the resolution amendments first. And then we will come to the question of the dialogue meeting versus the intercessional process. So I was summing up that I did not think that there was enough support in the room from our discussions yesterday and earlier this morning to adopt the amendments to Resolution Conf 10.10 Rev CoP 18 as proposed in document 66.4.1. So it's my conclusion that we do not agree to those amendments. My second piece, if we go to COP19 document 66.4.2, there is a recommendation that we note the document presented by the European Union. I think I can sum up that we do all note the document from the European Union. My third piece is the decisions outlined in Annex 1 of 66.4.2. It's my conclusion based on our discussions in reference to decision 19AA paragraphs A and B that we will not adopt those paragraphs and we will continue our discussions on the matters raised in those paragraphs under document 88. And now I would like to discuss the matter of the dialogue meeting versus the intercessional process. So I heard interest in an intercessional, in a dialogue meeting, and I also heard as an alternative a preference for an intercessional process. The views expressed were that a dialogue meeting would be for African elephant range states, and the alternate view for the intercessional process was that it would allow the involvement of other bodies, other parties. I did hear quite a bit of support this morning for the intersessional process, but the EU has expressed their preference for a dialogue meeting. The wording of the paragraph C in decision 19AA is to consider to call a dialogue meeting. That is a task for the standing committee to consider calling a dialogue meeting. So it's my view that we can adopt this decision because it is a consideration for the standing committee, and I think probably worthwhile having further discussions on the need and the makeup of a dialogue meeting within the standing committee. Benin, you have the floor.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I'd just like to understand, are we discussing a working group or a dialogue meeting here? I'm not sure what the proposal was.
So we are discussing a direction to the standing committee, and we've heard the European Union's proposal for a dialogue meeting, and we have also heard a call for an intersessional process, which would be a decision of the standing committee as to handle that intersessional process, unless there was a decision tabled that would call for a working group to be established. Usually the COP tasks the standing committee to achieve matters, and the standing committee decides on the mechanism for that. What I don't have in front of me with regards to the intersessional process, because I do have a decision here calling for a consideration of a dialogue meeting, what I don't have is any language in front of me calling for tasking the standing committee with anything. Burkina Faso, you have the floor.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. We have listened to this discussion very closely, and we've heard several different opinions. We see that the room is divided. However, we wish to insist on the creation of a working group, and we've explained the rationale behind this. We need a larger number of stakeholders involved in order to ensure that we hold transparent discussions. Therefore, Burkina Faso and the African Elephant Coalition would not understand if the intersessional working group would not be accepted, and instead we opted for a dialogue meeting. It's not just a matter to be discussed between range states in southern Africa and other parts of Africa. It's a global issue. And we've heard that there's interest from stakeholders from around the world in creating an intersessional working group. So we'd like to insist on the creation of an intersessional working group, as well as the moratorium which we proposed. Because we need to be honest and frank about this issue, which has been around for some time now. A dialogue meeting will not address this issue. We need a broader process. Thank you.
Thank you, Burkina Faso. I understand your point. What I'm asking for is that I don't have any language to adopt here to establish an intersessional process. And I think that's what people are asking for. So if anyone would like to propose, I think that we can work on a decision here which establishes an intersessional process, if that's what parties want. I'm also proposing that the Standing Committee could consider, in addition, if that's what you would like, a dialogue meeting. I have a couple of parties asking for the floor. United States of America, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We wonder if the proposal of the EU, Decision 19 AAC, might be clarified to accommodate the proposal by Burkina Faso by adding at the end of the draft decision and recommending other parties, the CITES Secretariat, and technical experts to participate in the meeting in accordance with the annex to Resolution COP 14.5. Thank you. Madam Chair.
I see Burkina Faso asking for the floor, and as the proponent calling for this, I will give Burkina Faso the floor again. Burkina Faso.
Je voudrais apporter.
Thank you. I'd just like to provide some clarification. What Burkina Faso and members of the coalition are requesting is that the Standing Committee itself establish this working group. That's what we're requesting. It was just a clarification. Thank you.
Okay, so that we can move along here, I'm going to propose amendments. It's a little bit unusual, but I have several puzzle pieces to put together here, so please stay with me. And I hope this is going to bring everyone's ideas together, because I think we're all moving in the same space. So, I propose, having heard interventions from parties, that we work from the European Union's draft decision 19AA paragraph C. So noting that we are not adopting paragraphs A and B, I will read what I think from the start. So the Standing Committee shall, paragraph A, establish an intersessional working group. 2, and then I will go the second line of the European Union's paragraph C, where it begins consider. So the intersessional working group. 2, consider a harmonisation of the conditions to trade in live African elephants and propose relevant changes to resolutions to COP20, as well as relevant changes to annotation 2, including changes to streamline and simplify the annotation. Then I would, paragraph B, consider, so this would be the Standing Committee shall consider to call a CITES dialogue meeting for African elephant range states as per resolution CONF 14.5 on dialogue meetings, and then I would add the suggestion from the US, and consider recommending other parties, the CITES Secretariat, and other experts attend the meeting. So I hope I've drawn together everyone's ideas here. We are asking the Standing Committee, in all of their wisdom, to establish an intercessional process, to establish a working group to consider the matters that we have discussed here today. And we are also asking the Standing Committee to consider a dialogue meeting for range states, and as the US has suggested, consider whether it would be useful to include other membership of that dialogue meeting. I see 3 parties asking for the floor. Senegal, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I believe that this is a commendable attempt to bring together diverging views. I believe this could be accepted. I just have one issue when it comes to my understanding of this. I'm sure the Standing Committee will define the conceptual framework. What do we mean by working group, and what do we mean by dialogue meeting? Ultimately, I think it's about finding a consensus, so let's not get lost in conceptual discussions, which may bring us away from the focus of this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Senegal. And as you say, the Standing Committee will initiate their discussions, and I encourage everyone to participate in those. I have Democratic Republic of the Congo. You have the floor.
Merci, Madame la
Thank you for giving me the floor, Madam Chair. I welcome the way in which you have brought together the different views. However, I feel that we're pushing the Standing Committee to swim in a very large sea here, if you will. How will they start? Will they start by initiating a dialogue meeting or a working group? I believe the issues are not necessarily resolved. It just means delegating this to the Standing Committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Democratic Republic of the Congo. I will take 3 more parties on this, and then I will hope to wrap up. Mali, you have the floor. Very briefly, Mali, please.
Merci bien, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I'll be brief. I feel that, as Senegal has mentioned, it's not necessarily clear what is being done here. We requested a broad intercessional working group, so we agree with what has just been said. The process needs to be clear, because otherwise we will not be able to find a solution to this issue. And with every COP that goes by, the same thing happens. We postpone processes to later on. So perhaps we need more clarity here. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mali. Kenya, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, we also want to commend you for trying to get a consensus on this matter. But just like Senegal, we feel that the directive to the Standing Committee is very clear in Section A of your recommendation that they shall establish. That means they will intercessional working group. And in so doing, it will create the transparent process that was being recommended by majority parties to look at this very key subject. Madam Chair, it is our considered view, once that is done, then the issue of having a dialogue meeting becomes redundant, because it's like doing the same thing. So just like Senegal, we believe we can leave it at a recommendation to the standing committee so that we don't create further confusion, to set up this working group to look at this subject with all the experts available, so that this subject can be conclusively discussed and prepared the report to COP20. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Kenya. I'm going to take Eswatini as my last party. Eswatini, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to commend your efforts to try and bring these discussions together. I know it's a rather difficult process, and I feel for you. Madam Chair, I think it's important to realize that it is a very complex issue, and I think we need to try and break it, compartmentalize it and break it down and take this in steps. I think the greatest stakes lie with the range states. All of them, Southern Africa, West Africa, Central Africa, East Africa. That's where the real stakes lie. Those are the countries, those are the role players who are going to make this work or are going to allow it to kick the bucket. Madam Chair, I believe the dialogue is a very important first step to this process. There have been dialogues in the past. A lot of water has passed under that bridge. A lot of emotion has occurred. A lot of damage has been done. Africa's been split. And I think it's time to come back, try and reformulate as the range states what we need for our elephants. And from there, we then take it forward and we open it up going forward. And then the other role players can come in. But at the end of the day, it's the range states who are going to carry the responsibility of losing the African elephant or carrying them forward into the future. So give the range states, all of them, the opportunity to try and sort this out without too much outside interference. I believe that the European Union was approaching this in a rational way, and let's start building blocks from the foundation and make them solid. We can bring in other role players later, but let the range states have the opportunity to lay the foundation. Thank you.
Thank you, Eswatini. Okay, thank you, parties. So just reflecting on my proposal, I think the two elements that we've been discussing are actually not at odds with each other, that they're complementary, and if we ask the Standing Committee to consider both of them, then I don't think that there's any conflict between those two concepts. What I've read out is what I would consider to be the terms of reference for the working group in the intersessional period, and then I have suggested that the Standing Committee could consider a dialogue meeting. And Resolution COM 14.5 on dialogue meetings is clear about the content of dialogue meetings. So I've been listening to you, and I think I understand everyone's perspective. So I would like to table my proposal as the way forward. And because I haven't heard a lot of support for that as the presiding officer, I would like to call a vote on the adoption of my proposal as what I see to be the best way forward based on all of your views. So I will read again my proposal. So I propose a decision which would read, directed to the Standing Committee. The Standing Committee shall establish an intersessional working group to consider a harmonisation of the conditions to trade in live African elephants and propose relevant changes to resolutions to CoP20, as well as relevant changes to Annotation 2, including changes to streamline and amplify the annotation. Streamline and simplify the annotation. Thank you, Secretary General. Paragraph B. Consider to call a CITES dialogue meeting for African elephant range states as per Resolution COM 14.5 on dialogue meetings, and consider recommending other parties, the Secretariat and other experts attend the dialogue meeting. So my proposal that we vote, if you vote in favour in this vote, so you vote yes, you are voting for the adoption of the decision that I have read. If you vote no, you do not wish for my proposal to be adopted. I will give you a moment or so, parties. Please take your seats. Please have your people in the room. I don't see as much running around as we did yesterday. Can I please thank you, security? I see security in the room, having everyone leave the party area. Media to the media area, please. And just so we're clear, if this is not adopted, we will consider the two alternative proposals that I've attempted to combine here. We will consider the proposal from the EU for the dialogue meeting and the proposal for Burkina Faso for an intersessional process. We will consider those two separately if this does not get support. European Union, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a question for clarification so that we all know what the different steps in this process might be. So first we will have a vote on the two decisions you have put forward. If this is not accepted, then you would proceed with a vote on the establishment of an the establishment of, sorry, let me begin. If it is voted down, you will ask for a vote on the decision proposed by the EU on the calling of a dialogue meeting. And if that would not be adopted, then we would go towards the proposal to set up an intersessional working group. Is that how we understand it? Thank you.
Thank you, European Union. So the process will be, we will vote on my proposal. If that is not adopted, we will first vote on the amendments from Burkina Faso to the European Union's proposal. So the European Union is proposing, instead of a dialogue meeting, to have an intersessional working group to consider the matters that you have raised in your proposal. And then if that is not successful, we will consider the European Union's original proposal. European Union, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We think it would be more appropriate to have a vote first on the EU proposal, which was on the table and which was the original proposal, and with the decision that the Standing Committee shall call a CITES dialogue meeting, because when we have the first vote, should the vote on your proposal not be adopted, and then we go to the EU proposal, we should strike out the first word, consider, because the considerations have already been done at this meeting. And we should have a vote on the decision that the Standing Committee shall call a dialogue meeting. And then, if that is not accepted, I think we can vote on the amendment from Burkina Faso. Thank you.
Thank you, European Union. As I've heard that you've just amended your proposal to strike the words consider to, we will take your amendment to your own proposal first, and then we would take Burkina Faso's amendment to your proposal second. So for everyone's clarity, we are voting on my proposal first. If that is not successful, we will probably vote on the European Union's amendment to their proposal, and then if that is not successful, we will vote on Burkina Faso's amendment to the EU's proposal. European Union, I wonder if you could offer the parties some clarity as to how the members of the European Union will be voting on this matter.
It is a vote casted by the individual member states. Thank you.
Thank you, European Union. So I would like to start the voting procedure. This is a vote on agenda item 66.4.2. The voting type is by normal vote. The vote of the European Union will be cast by the individual member states. Since this is a vote on a substantive matter, the decision will be adopted by a 2/3 majority. Thank you, technicians. Parties, you have 40 seconds to cast your vote. The ballot is open now. "40 seconds are up. The ballot is now closed. Technicians, please show the result on the main screen. So my proposal was not adopted by the 2/3 majority. Technicians, please show the individual votes on the screen. All right, thank you, everyone. As my proposal was not adopted, I've indicated that we will vote on the amended proposal. We will keep the votes scrolling if we can. Technicians, sorry, people are still trying to take photos. Okay, it looks like everyone has gotten their photos. So as I indicated, we'll now vote on, it's my proposal that we vote. I don't think we have a consensus position on the European Union's proposal. We will vote on the adoption of Decision 19AA, directed to the Standing Committee, as outlined in Annex 1 of Document 66.4.2. We are looking at paragraph C. And I note that the European Union has just amended their proposal to strike the first two words of this decision, consider to. European Union will tell me if I've got that wrong, but that's correct. Thank you, European Union. So the Standing Committee shall call a dialogue meeting would be the start of that paragraph, and it would carry on as written. United States.
Madam Chair, point of question whether, point of clarification, whether the proposal or the United States proposed amendments are included in that, which would add at the end, and recommending other parties, the CITES Secretariat and technical experts to participate in the meeting in accordance with the annex to the resolution COP 14.5. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, United States. I've just seen the EU indicate that they have adopted your proposed amendments. So that is the EU's proposed amendments to strike consider to, and the addition of your amendments which the EU has adopted in their amended proposal. Thank you. So I would like to start the voting procedures. Thank you, technicians. This is a vote on agenda item 66.4.2. The voting type is by normal vote. The vote of the European Union will be cast by the delegation of the individual member states. I'm sorry, I will start that again. The vote of the European Union will be cast by the individual member states. Since this is a vote on a substantive matter, the decision will be adopted by a 2/3 majority. Parties, you have 40 seconds to cast your vote. The ballot is open now. Forty seconds are up. The vote is now closed. Technicians, please show the result on the main screen. So the proposal is adopted by a 2/3 majority. Please show the individual votes on the screen. Okay. Hopefully we've had enough time to look at the individual party votes. So the EU's amended paragraph C of draft decision 19AA has been accepted by the committee. So we come to the piece that I've identified as the fifth piece of this discussion, which is the new proposal this morning from Burkina Faso, new decision that Burkina Faso read out and I read out. I will read again. So it is a new decision directed to the parties to agree. 1 second. Sorry, parties, just as I began reading Burkina Faso's language, I realised that it refers to the intercessional process that is underway, which you have elected not to pursue. By rejecting my proposal, you have decided not to have a recommendation to the Standing Committee to have an intercessional process. So the draft decision by Burkina Faso cannot refer to an intercessional process. Burkina Faso, I wonder if you would like to amend your proposal. Burkina Faso, you have the floor.
Merci.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, we see that our proposal failed to thrive as it was not adopted. However, or did not gain much favor. However, we did suggest that were there to be an intercessional working group or a dialogue meeting, there should be a moratorium on the sale of wild-caught elephants until the next COP. So perhaps that question could be considered.
Okay, Burkina Faso, with your indulgence, I will take your comment and understand that you are still proposing your text, but you would like me to replace while this intercessional process is underway with while the dialogue meeting process is underway. So that is what is happening in this intercessional period, the dialogue meeting. So you would like me to amend your draft decision to reference the period of time for the dialogue meeting. Perhaps it would be helpful if I read the decision as I think you have suggested it be amended. So it would read, Decision 19BB, the parties agree that while the process for the dialogue meeting is underway, any export of live wild-caught African elephant will be limited to in situ conservation programs or secure areas in the wild within the species' natural and historical range in Africa, except in exceptional circumstances where, in consultation with the Animals Committee, through its chair, with the support of the Secretariat, and in consultation with the IUCN African Elephant Specialist Group, It is considered that a transfer to ex situ locations will provide demonstrable in situ conservation benefits for African elephants, or in the case of temporary transfers in emergency situations. Burkina Faso, is that acceptable?
Oui, ça nous...
Yes, Madam Chair, we're happy with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Burkina Faso. So, we have not at length discussed this, but I did hear a few comments in our discussion that were cautious around the proposal of Burkina Faso. So I would like to propose that we also vote on the adoption of this decision for the purposes of clarity and time. I understand that Burkina Faso introduced this new decision under the European Union's document. So this will be a vote on agenda item CoP19 Doc 66.4.2, the new proposal for decision 19BB from Burkina Faso as clarified and amended between myself and Burkina Faso. The voting type is by normal vote. The vote of the European Union will be cast by the individual member states. Since this is a vote on a substantive matter, the decision will be adopted by a 2/3 majority. There's still a little bit of movement in the room if everyone could take their seats while the technicians have the settings arranged for us.
Chair, the technicians are ready.
Thank you, technicians. I think we're ready to vote. So parties, you have 40 seconds to cast your vote. The ballot is open. Forty seconds are up. The ballot is now closed. Technicians, please show the result on the main screen. So the proposal is adopted by a 2/3 majority. Please show the individual votes on the screen. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, technicians. I think we've had enough time with the votes. Thank you, everyone, for your patience and your... Sorry, I'm doing weird things with my folder down here. For your patience and for your courtesy and your respect for everyone. This is a very sensitive issue and I'm pleased that we made it through. However, now we are very behind in our working program. And so I am going to need to move things along significantly. I still want to offer space for debate, but it is the job that you have given me is to make sure we get through our working program, and I am concerned. So we will move on, but I am going to enforce a 2-minute intervention limit as far as possible for everyone going forwards. So I will go easy on you if it looks like you're going to conclude, but I will have to interrupt people. And please, if you can share votes with, don't share your votes. If you can share your views with other parties and speak on behalf of each other, I would really, really welcome it going forward. So we will move on to CoP19 document 66.2.1. Ivory stockpiles, implementation of resolution Conf 10.10, Rev CoP18 on trade in elephant specimens. This document has been submitted by Benin, Burkina Faso, Equatorial Guinea, Ethiopia, Gabon, Kenya, Liberia, Niger, Senegal and Togo. I'd like to invite one of the proponents to introduce the document. Burkina Faso is asking for the floor. Burkina Faso, you have the floor.
Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ivory stockpiles constitute a serious threat to elephants because of illegal trade in ivory. This stimulates demand and leads to continuing markets in ivory. A 2021 report of UNODC shows seizures of ivory in 2019 and raises serious concerns with respect to the source of the ivory seized. It does seem that some of the ivory did come from national stockpiles. To refer to the UNODC reports, only 5 major seizures in 2019, adding up to over 30 tons, mean that this is a record year for seizures, and this seems to go against the trend to lower smaller seizures from 2014. Poaching seems to be on the decrease, and that does seem to suggest that there is more ivory from national stockpiles is finding its way into the illegal trade rather than it being the result of poaching. We are very concerned with the whole question of declaration because only 17 made declarations in 19 and 21 in 20. The Secretariat has also identified some 44 parties that probably do hold ivory stockpiles. These are parties that have not submitted inventories or reports. The current inventory form has been overtaken by accounts and is not in keeping with Conf 1010 Rev CoP18. Document 66.2.1 suggests changes to the form and establishes a system whereby countries have to make a declaration if they have ochre stockpiles or if they are designated importer countries or if they have an ivory carving industry or a legal ivory market, a non-regulated market or they are in any way involved in ivory trade. The Secretariat does identify those countries that must submit a form, as well as those countries that require support in order to provide that information, and this would improve the convention's implementation. We and a number of other countries support this proposal. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Burkina Faso. One other thing I did want to note, we discussed in Bureau proposals with multiple proponents. I am taking as assumed that the proponents for proposals are supportive of their own proposals, and so I would invite parties who are not proponents on proposals going forward to take the floor. I would like to hear some proponents, but with the time pressures on us, I'm not going to hear multiple proponents on every proposal. South Africa, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. South Africa already reports to the Secretariat on an annual basis under Resolution Conf 1010 Rev COP 18, paragraph 7E. We regard this current reporting as sufficient, and we therefore do not support the implementation of the suggested declaration of ivory stockpiles and the model inventory form as proposed in Annex 1 CoP19 Doc 66.2. We believe that parties that would like to have a more comprehensive report do so on a national basis, as this suggested report will just place a further burden on those countries with large stockpiles. Thank you.
Thank you, South Africa. Botswana, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Botswana would wish to echo the sentiments expressed by South Africa and not support the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Botswana. Japan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Japan would like to mention privately held stockpile. First, Japan believes that it is important that stockpile be properly recognized, and Japan contributes by reporting private stockpiles in accordance with Resolution 1010. However, Japan presumes that the number of parties reporting their privately held stockpile is small. Rather than expanding the reporting requirements to require a detailed inventory of privately held stockpiles, Japan believes that the focus should be first considering a way to make it easier for all parties with ivory stockpiles to report their stockpiles so that they can appropriately report the amount of the stockpile. Attention should be paid not to exclude such parties as destination countries and parties which are historically used in ivory in their market if we utilize reported data of privately held stockpiles. Regarding submission of the detailed data of a privately held stockpile, given that such data is derived from private companies and individuals, it is required to identify and establish common criteria of the protection of such data. Madam Chair, Japan would like to propose to delete subparagraph B, as well as delete and when appropriate, properly disposed of for non-commercial purpose in the third paragraph of the 19.AA. And thank you.
Thank you, Japan. Tanzania, you have the floor.
Giving us the opportunity to contribute on this one. Tanzania aligns itself with
sentiments raised by South Africa and Botswana. We are not supporting this proposal, and it is our strong conviction that the issue of ivory stockpile management is a state issue, and it should be dealt with the existing legislation. Increasing reporting procedure will increase the burden for party. We therefore reject the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanzania. India, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I take this opportunity to put forth India has a very robust act in place which takes care such issues. India does not have any stockpiles of the elephant ivory. Sporadic seizures of elephant ivory made by different enforcing agencies are kept in safe custody as evidence for production before the court of law during the trials. Such items are destroyed after the end of the court cases, and no sale of such seized ivories are allowed as per the legal provisions in the place. It is also important to reiterate that ivory trade in India has been banned since 1990, and no ivory industry exists. However, keeping in view the high degree of conservation and protection given to Asian elephants in the country, we support the declaration of ivory stockpiles by the parties and their disposal plan, without going into the details of the modalities prescribed in this proposal. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, India. I will take a few more interventions. I have lots of parties asking for the floor, but I'm seeing some shared views, so I will take Thailand. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thailand is not comfortable with the declaration of ivory stock and model inventory form proposed in the Annex 1 of this document. We therefore cannot support the recommendation made by the proponents in paragraph 48 to 50 of the present document. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Thailand. European Union.
Thank you, Madam Chair. While the EU and its member states share the call of the proponents for parties to report properly on their ivory stockpiles as foreseen in Resolution COP 10.10, we consider these elements are already addressed in this resolution in an adequate manner, and therefore we cannot support the suggested decision of the proponents of this document. Thank you.
Thank you, EU. I will take one more proponent for this document. I will take the one that's up top of my list. Gabon, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Gabon wishes to take the floor as a co-sponsor of document 66.2.1 because all voices must be heard to ensure that the discussion reflects the different views within this committee. Document 66.2.1 is based on recommendations of SC 74 following a report from the Secretariat which highlighted the low compliance levels in paragraph 7E of Resolution COP 1010 Rev COP 18, and particularly as regards the report declaring that only 21 states had submitted a report, whereas 44 countries had not submitted any reports. SC 74 highlighted that some declarations are not made, particularly when it comes to stockpiles destroyed within the same year. We also have concerns regarding the report of the Secretariat, which showed a lack of data when it comes to securing stockpiles of ivory. Ivory stockpiles represent a significant risk when it comes to a theft of this ivory, which may end up on the market. the number of seizures of ivory are increasing and government stockpiles are increasing as a result. Therefore, we request a detailed inventory of stockpiles in line with the provisions of Resolution CoP19, paragraph 7E. These inventories must be a priority. However, the current process is lacking when it comes to the comprehensiveness of the information. The proposal contained in document 6621 is in accordance with provisions of Resolution CoP19 Rev CoP18 and would facilitate reports and would help states parties who need support in securing their stockpiles of ivory. Therefore, Gabon urges countries to support Proposal 60 contained in 66.2.1, which is supported by a number of concerned countries. Thank you.
Thank you, Gabon. I will take three more parties. I will take Mauritania, followed by the United States, followed by China. Mauritania, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for giving me the floor. As this is the first time we're taking the floor, well, I believe that this proposal has merit. It's the only solution to discourage poaching, and therefore we support this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Mauritania. United States.
Thank you, Chair. As noted in Standing Committee Document 74, Document 61.2, the Secretariat does not have complete information of which parties appear to have stockpiles of government-held ivory but have never reported such stockpiles, and notes the challenges the parties might face in collecting and making available data concerning privately held stockpiles. Therefore, the United States aligns with the proponents of the proposal. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, United States. I know I said who I was taking next, but I just forgot. If I said I was taking you next, can you take the floor? Maybe I didn't, sorry, it's been a long morning. I intended to take Namibia. Namibia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Namibia agrees with the views raised by Botswana, South Africa, Tanzania, and the EU, and does not support the decisions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Namibia. So I have lots of parties asking for the floor, but I think I indicated I was going to take China. So I will take China.
Thank you, Chair. China would like to share the following opinions. First, destruction is not the only way to dispose of stockpiles. Countries also have many other methods to regulate stockpile management, which has made a positive effect on elephant conservation. Secondly, stockpiles disposal is a domestic affair of all countries, which has been widely recognized and has been confirmed by CITES Standing Committee and other many times. Thirdly, in items 66.1, the Standing Committee has proposed to extend the relevant decisions, which have been adopted yesterday. We support this way forward while opposed the draft decisions in document 66.2. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, China. I think that's pretty clear. Only decision is what to do with the decisions then. Okay, thank you everyone. I know there are lots of parties asking for the floor, but in general I'm hearing no support for the recommendations of this well, so I won't be that black and white. I'm hearing more opposition to the proposal than I am hearing support. So in the interest of time and acknowledging that there are existing reporting requirements, and I did hear parties calling for their colleague parties to fully comply with the existing reporting requirements. Unless there is one observer who is very, very keen to take the floor. Okay, I will take one observer, and it is the observer who I keep mispronouncing their title. Centre for Biodiversity is what comes up on my screen, I'm sorry. Centre for Biodiversity, perhaps you could remind me what your actual name is so we correct you properly in the record. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is the Center for Biological Diversity. And this intervention is on behalf of 20 NGOs whose names I will provide to the rapporteur. The ongoing problem of leakage of ivory from stockpiles to the black market continues to be documented by the UN ODC and researchers. We cannot ignore the fact that there is simply no way to guarantee this leakage ceases. Recognizing the recommendations in Res Conf 17.8 regarding disposal of seized specimens, we have reached the moment when CITES needs to accept that stocks of ivory should be systematically and regularly destroyed once all forensic and research needs have been met, as is the case for most other seized goods, in order to alleviate the burden on parties and prevent leakage. Until stocks are destroyed, reporting must be improved. The Secretariat reported to SC74 that 44 CITES parties believed to have ivory stockpiles have failed to report on these stocks. Nevertheless, the Secretariat recommends rejecting this proposal. Yet it is undeniable that a better system is needed to ensure adequate reporting. For this reason, we urge parties to support this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Centre for Biological Diversity. So it is my conclusion from our discussions that there is not enough support to adopt this proposal. So it is my conclusion that Committee 2 recommends that the Conference of the Parties not adopt the recommendations in CoP19 document 66.2.1. Senegal, you have the floor.
Madam. Thank you, Madam Chair. Now, I don't wish to contradict you, but as you haven't given the floor to everyone who requested it, then I don't believe that you can have a fair overview of who is in favour and who isn't. Thank you.
Senegal, I did indicate at the start of my intervention that I wasn't going to be able to take all of the proponents of the paper, and most of the parties on my list, a good number of the parties on my list are proponents. I understand we all know who are the proponents of the paper, and we understand what your position will be. So I'm taking challenges to my summation, and I see Gabon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We heard from 9 parties who do not support document 66.2.1. We also heard from 2 parties who support the document, in addition to the 10 co-sponsors. So we don't believe that there is a predominant position here. In order to foster consensus or understanding, we would be ready to accept the amendments proposed by the Secretariat in paragraph 51 of the document, with a proposal for amendment concerning 19BB. Indeed, the low level of declaration of ivory stocks is concerning. We believe that the current inventory form for ivory stockpiles must be strengthened and reviewed to be better aligned with CoP19 Rev CoP18. The Secretariat stated in its comments on document 66.2.1 that it could accept changes proposed in Annex 1 to the document when it prepares notifications for the parties. In light of this comment, we propose the following amendment to 19BB. Remove paragraph 19BB small a and replace it by a new paragraph as follows. Decision 19BB. The Secretariat shall small a, update the model inventory form, taking into account the declaration of ivory stocks and model inventory form proposed in Annex 1 to document CoP19 Doc 66.2.1. And shall use this updated model inventory form when publishing future notifications to parties. I'll repeat that. Small a, update the inventory model, taking into account the declaration of ivory stocks and model inventory form proposed in Annex 1 to document CoP19 Doc 66.2.1, and shall use this updated model inventory form when publishing future notifications to parties. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Gabon. So we've heard from a proponent, a modification on their proposal. So I would like to take views on the amended proposal that we have in front of us that Gabon has just read for us. I need your assistance on this. I need interventions that indicate support or opposition for the proposal as amended by Gabon so we can move on. If you will help me along and do that, then we will be able to hear more voices. It's the lengthy interventions that are challenging us here. So I will take Côte d'Ivoire. You have the floor.
Merci, Madame.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I wish to express my surprise that after requesting the floor several times on the previous item, I was not given the floor. I will put this down to technical issues. Now, coming back to the issue at hand, I would like to take into account Senegal's statement, highlighting that in your statement, you indicated that the majority did not support the proposal, whereas, as Gabon very eloquently put it, when determining whether there is a majority, you must take into account the proponents of the decision plus those who have taken the floor. And within the room, a number of states did not take the floor or were not given the floor who would have supported this decision. So your ruling stating that the majority did not support the decision, well, we do not share that assessment. And following the statement made by Gabon and the numbers that Gabon provided, the figures that Gabon provided, which are particularly concerning, must urge parties to move in the same direction as the proposal that we had put forward. And we support the amendment that Gabon has just put forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Côte d'Ivoire. I am attempting to give as many parties the floor as I can. Benin, you have the floor.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I align with Côte d'Ivoire and other countries. We would like to take the floor on this issue, which is particularly close to our hearts. And it's also important for the Secretariat and others interested in protecting African elephants. The Secretariat has already been undertaking significant efforts to secure stockpiles. But it is an issue that is particularly concerning, and we do support Gabon's proposal in the hope that we can discuss this issue in detail during this COP. Thank you.
Thank you, Benin. Israel, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. We concur with the concerns expressed by the United States and support this proposal as amended. Thank you.
Thank you, Israel. United States of America.
Thank you, Chair. The United States supports the amendments proposed by Gabon. Thank you.
Thank you, United States. Just trying to find. Lau PDR, you have the floor. Lau PDR, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for giving Lao PDR the floor. Given that Lao PDR take the floor for the first time, I would like to congratulate you with your selection to chair this committee, and I would like to thank the government of Panama for great hospitality. By our careful consideration, the given reasons provided by China, Lao PDR would like to provide our support to China to oppose the draft decisions in document 66.2. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Lau PDR. Democratic Republic of the Congo, you have the floor.
Merci, Madame.
Thank you for giving me the floor, Madam Chair. I just wanted to take the floor to state that the initial document was perhaps not very clear for reasons that have been explained, and I don't believe that Gabon's amendment will add anything to this. So I just wanted to say that we do not support Gabon's amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Democratic Republic of the Congo. I'm going to continue taking parties, and I would encourage you to reflect on Gabon's amendment. So, China, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As we all know, millions of elephants were killed for ivory trade in the past centuries. Thousands of tons of raw and worked ivory owned by the citizens of the United States and the other developed countries may also be traded domestically and internationally. and it's not easy to distinguish them with the modern ones. Our suggestion is that even though the Gabon charged your ruling about this, and just as my colleague mentioned in our last intervention, it is finally the aim of change the standard form is to destroy the ivory. So still we cannot support Gabon's change about this. So we still believe that the ivory stockpile disposal is a matter of domestic. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, China. All right, I'm going to close my speaker list for parties. I am going to take all of the parties that are on my list because I'm hearing that it's important for you to speak. I will be taking comments just on the following matters. So in decision 19AA, we've heard from Japan that they would like to propose the deletion of paragraph B and also the deletion of the in the final paragraph of decision 19AA, the language, and when appropriate, properly disposed of for non-commercial purposes. So I would like your views on that amendment. I would like your views on Gabon's amendment to decision 19BB paragraph A. So they've deleted paragraph A and replaced it. So I really encourage you to comment just on those specific matters. And if we haven't heard yet your overall views on the paper, on the document, and on the recommendations of the document, I will take those too. But really specifically on those matters, please. Niger, you have the floor.
Okay, merci beaucoup, Madame.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The proposal made by Gabon could help us move forward, so we would support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Niger. Togo, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would simply like to recall that ivory is trafficked internationally, and that is why we need to have international decisions to try to bring an end to these illegal markets. And that is why Togo supports Gabon's amendment. Thank you.
Zimbabwe, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Zimbabwe does not support the amendment proposal by Gabon. I submit.
Thank you, Zimbabwe. Mali, you have the floor.
Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam. Did you give Mali the floor? Thank you. I apologize. Thank you for giving us the floor. But I have an observation I would like to make. I do think that, as I've said since yesterday, wisdom will win the day. So here we have a body that brings together a number of different countries, and we really do feel that your impartiality is key. We, the proponents of this proposal, have concerns. We're faced with the possibility of extinction of this species. We also have countries that are stockpiling ivory, even though they are not range states. And that is a serious risk. So I would say that stock maintenance in such countries really does present problems with respect to ivory laundering and as well as financial challenges. Gabon has just given their analysis of the situation, and Mali certainly would take it on board. The African Elephant Coalition presented a proposal which we feel is ours, and we do think that that proposal should be maintained and supported by other states. Thank you.
Thank you, Mali. Kenya, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, Kenya believes that the proposal made and the amendments proposed by Gabon will enhance the reporting on ivory stocks and it will guide further decisions on how these stocks are made. Madam Chair, we therefore want to support the amendments proposed by Gabon for adoption by the Conference of Parties. I submit.
Thank you, Kenya. Burkina Faso.
Thank you, Madam. We shall be brief. Burkina Faso supports the amendments proposed by Gabon. We are seeking consensus here. If we have amendments like the one proposed by Gabon, that might help us move towards consensus. And that is why we support Gabon. Thank you.
Thank you, Burkina Faso. Botswana, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Botswana is not in a position to accept the amendment as proposed by Gabon. Thank you.
Thank you, Botswana. Zambia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Zambia rejects the proposals put forward by Gabon.
Thank you, Zambia. And finally, Tanzania.
Thank you, Chair. The United Republic of Tanzania does not support the additional amendments by Botswana. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Tanzania. So I will just confer with the Secretariat as to where we have landed there. So I'm looking at my tally list, and I don't think I'm in a position to make a call on the Gabonese amended proposal as to whether or not we have consensus support or opposition. So I am going to suggest that we vote again. We are voting on the proposal as amended by Gabon. I did not hear any support for Japan's amendment, so we are voting on the proposal as amended by Gabon. Gabon, I thought it might be helpful just for everyone's understanding, if you're ready, if you could read your amendment once more so that we have it together. So as I understand it, you are amending Decision 19BB, paragraph A. In fact, you are striking A and replacing it. If you could read that language for us, please.
Merci, Thank you, Madam. Yes, indeed, we would suggest deleting 19BBA and replace it with this language. Update the model inventory form, taking into account the declaration of ivory stocks and model inventory form proposed in Annex 1 to document CoP19 Doc 66.2.1, and use this updated model inventory form when publishing future notifications to the two parties. Let me repeat that. 19BB, the Secretariat shall A, update the model inventory form, taking into using the declaration of ivory stocks and model inventory form proposed in Annex 1 to document COP19 Doc 66.2.1, and use the updated model inventory form when issuing future notifications to parties. Thank you.
Thank you, Gabon. So we are voting on Decision 19AA, 19BB as amended, just with the clarity from Gabon. So 19BB as amended and 19CC. So your vote, if you would like those decisions, if you agree to those decisions, you will vote in favour. If you do not agree, you will vote no. I am starting a voting procedure, so I would have parties take your seats. Anyone who's not a party to leave the party area. Media in their seats. Thank you, everyone. So I've laid out what we are voting on. Gabon, you have the floor again.
Merci. Thank you, Madam Chair. A clarification, if I may. When we took the floor, we said that we were happy to accept the amendments proposed by the Secretariat with respect to 19AA. We would like to ask that there be a vote exclusively on the proposed amendment to 19BB. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you, Gabon. We had some different hearing up here, but thank you, that's very helpful. So I will go back. Gabon has accepted the Secretariat's amendments to 19AA, so we are just voting on 19BB as amended by Gabon. Just on 19BB as amended by Gabon. I'm sorry, I misheard your intervention. Okay. Starting the voting procedure now. This is a vote on document 66.2.1. The voting type is by normal vote. The vote of the European Union will be cast by the individual member states. Since this is a vote on a substantive matter, the decision will be adopted by a 2/3 majority. Parties, you have 40 seconds to cast your vote. Forty seconds are up. The ballot is now closed. Technicians, please display the results on the main screen. So the proposal as amended by Gabon is not adopted by a 2/3 majority. Technicians, please show the individual votes of parties. So parties, I hope you've had time to see your votes. So in conclusion, we have not agreed on decision 19BB. That is what we just voted on. We've not agreed. But since we did not Thank you, everyone. We're just making sure we're keeping things completely clear up here. So we have not adopted decision 19BB as amended by Gabon. We took a vote on that matter. If I come back to the other two decisions that are in front of us, I noted that Gabon, as the proponent, amended their proposal to accept the Secretariat's amendments to decision 19AA. And my understanding from the discussion was that those amendments addressed the concerns of the parties in response to this decision. So with the Secretariat's amendments to decision 19AA, it is my conclusion that we agree to that amended decision. And it's my conclusion that we agree to decision 19CC. Thank you, everyone. I'm planning to move on and have Kenya introduce the next document, if everyone is comfortable. Thank you. I did have a couple of parties, but they must be legacy hands. So Kenya, before we break, I'm just looking to you to see if you are comfortable introducing the next document with 5 minutes to go. Comfortable? Okay. Thank you, Kenya. Kenya, you have the floor. Oh, sorry, actually, I'll do my job first and I'll actually introduce it and then I'll have Kenya introduce it. So we're moving to CoP19 document 66.2.2. establishing a fund accessible to range states upon non-commercial disposal of ivory stockpiles. This document has been submitted by Kenya. Kenya, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for giving Kenya an opportunity to introduce document 66.22 on establishing a fund accessible to range states upon non-commercial disposal of ivory stockpiles. Kenya has submitted CoP19 document 66.22 in recognition of the fact that for years, debate over the resumption of ivory trade has divided elephant range states and consumed significant time at CITES COPs. COP19 document 66.22 seeks to reward elephant range states not with trade but with financial upon destruction of their stocks, thus taking the issues of ivory trade off the table and uniting elephant range states in finding solutions for the conservation of and reduction of conflict with elephants. Ivory trade not only stimulates illegal trade and poaching, but it produces meager economic resources that are insufficient to finance conservation efforts in the long term. Indefinitely storing ivory stockpiles, on the other hand, endangers elephant populations by feeding expectation that ivory trade will resume in the future. It is also costly and has resulted in the leakage of ivory from stocks onto the black market. Given the recognized need for financing coupled with the risk of stockpile maintenance, the destruction of ivory stockpiles following strict disclosure, transparency, and testing requirements should be a component of elephant management. Multiple multilateral financial mechanisms exist and may provide an institutional base for that can offer the necessary resources for long-term funding and compensate conservation efforts. These financial options are not risk-free and require exploration. The challenges presented by elephant conservation are just part of the escalating biodiversity crisis, necessitating serious engagement by the international community, including donor countries and international financial institutions, in devising new ways to secure and scale up much-needed resources to fund biodiversity. Madam Chair, we, Kenya, has provided information document 84 to give details to these proposals. The document proposes a set of decisions, including establishing an intersessional working group to further develop terms and conditions for establishing a fund and includes the mandate for the working group. It is worthy pointing out that the proposal covers all range states with ivory stockpiles and not just those in Africa, meaning we may need to look beyond funding arrangements with which we are familiar with, such as the African Elephant Fund. In our view, the novelty of this proposal is that it seeks to take ivory trade off the table as a funding source by requiring stockpile destruction, but also recognizes the urgent need for resources, now more than ever, to support the conservation of elephants and reduction of human-elephant conflict. We hope that with this proposal, we can find a new way forward and welcome parties to support. I submit. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Kenya, for introducing your document. I am not proposing to open the floor now at 2 minutes to 12, but I will continue with this document after our lunch break. I would like to ask the Secretariat to make some announcements and then we will break.
Thank you, Chair. Just a reminder about working groups. Please note that the working group schedule is available on the intranet and updated, so there's a specific section on the working groups, but just to remind you, that there will be 3 working groups during lunch break. The budget working group, of course, which is a closed meeting. Review of the NEAP process, which will be in ISMO 1 at 12:15. And then there's also a working group during lunchtime on proposal 49, Por Brasilia Equinata, in Caribe 6 from 12:15. Then very important, please do not leave the committee room with the headsets and the little receptors. There are a few already unaccounted for. If we cannot account for those, we'll have to ask for ID when we give out the headsets. So please do not leave the committee room with your headset and the receiver. And then please do not forget to take your voting cards with you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Enjoy your lunch.